Let's get right into it. Number 10. Owning an ocean-worthy boat. Imagine getting executed because you owned a boat, not because you were a pirate, not because you smuggled anything, just because your boat was too big. This actually happened in Japan during the Tokugawa period. The government was so serious about keeping people from leaving that they made it illegal to own any boat that could handle ocean travel. This meant even a fishing boat could be a death sentence if it was deemed too sturdy. The punishment was death. They'd execute not just the boat owner, but sometimes their entire family. It was part of something called the Sakoku policy, which meant closed country. The government was so paranoid about foreign influence that they turned the entire country into the world's largest prison. This law stayed in effect for over 200 years. For 2 centuries, Japanese people couldn't even dream about building a decent-sized boat without risking execution. Number 9. Making fun of the king's appearance. Medieval rulers were so sensitive about their appearance that even mentioning it could get you killed. King Charles II of Spain had what doctors called the Habsburg jaw. His bottom jaw stuck out so far he couldn't close his mouth properly. He had a tongue so big he could barely speak, and he drooled constantly. But making a joke about it in Spain meant certain death. Emperor Nero of Rome was balding young and made it illegal for anyone to look down at him from high places where they might see his bald spot. The punishment for breaking this rule was death. Even complimenting a ruler's appearance could get you executed. The logic was, who are you to judge the divine ruler's looks, even positively? Having the authority to evaluate their appearance was itself considered treason. Number 8. Sharing a map. During the Age of Discovery, sharing a map could get you executed. Maps weren't just pieces of paper with squiggly lines. They were basically the nuclear codes of their time. Countries like Spain and Portugal created entire government departments just to keep them secret. If you knew the safe routes through the Caribbean, you knew where to find gold. If you had accurate maps of the African coast, you controlled the spice trade. These maps were literally worth more than their weight in gold. In Portugal, sharing maps with foreigners was high treason, the same charge they gave people who tried to assassinate the king. The Spanish had a special prison in Seville just for people who leaked map information. Ship captains were even ordered to destroy their maps if they were about to be captured by enemy ships. Number 7. Beachcombing after a shipwreck. In 1753, England, taking a casual walk on the beach could get you killed. Finding treasure from a shipwreck and not turning it in was punishable by death. Just picking up stuff that washed up on the beach could land you at the gallows. William Pierce from Cornwall found some wood from a wrecked ship on the beach. He probably thought it would make good firewood. That simple thought cost him his life. He was hanged in 1769 for picking up shipwreck debris. Some coastal communities, known as wreckers, made a living from shipwrecks. They'd wait for storms, then put up false lights to trick ships into crashing on the rocks so they could raid the cargo. The law was this strict because shipwrecks were property of the crown. Taking that piece of driftwood wasn't just stealing from a shipwreck, you were technically stealing from the king himself. Number 6. Charging too much for bread. In medieval times, overcharging for bread wasn't just frowned upon, it was a death sentence. Back then, bread wasn't just food, it was life itself. When people spent most of their money just trying not to starve, a price hike could mean the difference between eating and going hungry. The Roman Emperor Diocletian in 301 AD got so fed up with inflation that he made a list of maximum prices for everything. If you charged more than that, you were executed. During the French Revolution, if you were caught overcharging for bread, you weren't just a criminal, you were an enemy of the people, and the punishment was the guillotine. Some bakers tried to argue that they needed to charge more because their costs went up. The authorities' response was simple. They executed them anyway. Number 5. Wearing a specific color. In ancient Rome, you could get executed for wearing purple. Not just any purple, but Tyrian purple, the most expensive dye in the ancient world. This stuff was worth more than its weight in gold. Making it was a nightmare. You needed to crush up thousands of sea snails just to dye a single piece of cloth. 250,000 snails for one royal toga. The Roman emperors were so obsessed with keeping purple as their special color that they made it illegal for anyone else to wear it. The punishment wasn't a fine or community service, it was death. The emperors had special police just to look for people wearing unauthorized purple. These fashion police weren't giving out style tips, they were dragging people to their death. Even owning purple dye or selling purple fabric could get you killed. This law stayed in effect for hundreds of years. Number 4. Predicting the future. Imagine being an astrologer in ancient Rome. These folks had what we'd consider a pretty normal job, looking at the stars and telling people what might happen next. But if you predicted something bad would happen to the emperor, you'd be executed for treason. And if you predicted something good would happen to the emperor's enemies, you'd be executed too. Now imagine predicting the emperor will die soon. If you're wrong, you're executed for spreading false rumors. If you're right, you're executed for obviously being part of the plot to kill him. Emperor Tiberius studied astrology himself, but would execute anyone else who got too good at it. He once had an astrologer named Thrasyllus brought to his palace to test him. Tiberius asked what the stars said about Thrasyllus's own future. Thrasyllus looked at the stars and started sweating. He said, "I see great danger coming for myself right now." Tiberius was so impressed by this answer that he spared him. Thrasyllus had seen guards ready to throw him off a cliff if he gave the wrong answer. Number 3. Translating a book. William Tyndale wanted people to read the Bible in English, but in the 1500s, that was enough to get you killed. Back then, the Bible was only available in Latin, a language most people couldn't read. The church wanted to keep it that way. They were the only ones who could read and interpret the holy book. When Tyndale started translating the Bible into English, they were furious. Tyndale had to flee England, moving from city to city as a fugitive, but he kept translating and sending his work back to England in secret. In 1535, a spy befriended Tyndale, pretending to support his work. This friend invited him to dinner and had him arrested. Tyndale spent 500 days in a cold, damp castle dungeon in Belgium. In 1536, they tied him to a stake, strangled him, and burned his body. His last words were, "Lord, open the King of England's eyes." Just 3 years later, King Henry VIII ordered that an English Bible should be placed in every church. Most of it was Tyndale's translation. Today, common phrases like "the powers that be" and "fight the good fight" came from Tyndale's work. Number 2. Hunting rabbits on someone else's land. In Norman England, spotting a fat rabbit on a noble's land meant certain death if you tried to catch it. After the Norman invasion, the new rulers created the forest laws. These weren't laws to protect nature, they were laws to protect rich people's entertainment. If you were a peasant caught hunting on a noble's land, you were challenging the entire social order. The punishments were brutal. A first offense could mean losing your fingers. A second offense, being blinded. A third offense meant execution. The nobles would even release rabbits onto peasants' farmland. These rabbits would destroy their crops. But if a peasant killed the rabbits to protect their own food source, they could be executed. It was like having a neighbor release hungry animals into your yard, then having you killed if you tried to stop them. Number 1. Using the wrong written character. Imagine getting executed because you misspelled a word. In China's Qing dynasty, that's exactly what could happen. During this time, there was something called the Literary Inquisition. You couldn't use any characters that were part of the emperor's given name. This is known as a naming taboo. One wrong character could get you and your entire family executed. By entire family, they meant your parents, siblings, children, and even your teacher for not catching the mistake. A scholar named Wang Shiho wrote a dictionary. For the preface, he printed the names of previous emperors, but failed to omit one of the characters from the current emperor's name when he did so. The government arrested him, his entire family, and everyone involved in publishing the dictionary. All of them were executed. This went on for about 150 years. During this time, countless scholars were executed, books were burned, and families were wiped out, all because someone wrote the wrong squiggle on a piece of paper. That's all for today. I'll be making similar videos in the future. Subscribe to see them.